We have a video from a channel that is hopefully not AI. Hopefully the voice is bearable with. We got a video on Luffy versus Naruto and how it is embarrassing. This is a debate, age old, almost as old as time between the anime community. I think this can be friends. You don't always gotta put this up against each other. That's why I kind of have a little respect for what Death Battle does, at least with the matchups they choose. Like the two characters are related. So it's like, oh, who's better? And then they go into the power scaling. But the conversation could have easily started like, oh, between, let's say, Ichigo and Yusuke, who's the better, like, ghost hunter or something like that. You feel me? It doesn't have to be a conversation that originally started with power behind it. But, so enough, yeah, for me, as always, I'm going to prefer a little like. And as always, your main man slide onto your timeline and provide you with some content. Without further ado, let's just slide into it.
Luffy versus Naruto's funny, because one side has almost zero valid arguments for their GOAT. To do this right, we're splitting the fight into multiple rounds, and building all the way up to peak Luffy versus peak Naruto. We're talking Baryon mode Naruto against the hypothetical endgame Luffy with no Gear 5 time limit and
Already don't like this conversation. Theoretical endgame Luffy. So Luffy had a power that we don't like, that's unquantifiable and unconfirmable, versus Naruto, whose power we know is like that's like his cap. That's
comparable to Joy Boy himself. For the first matchup, we're placing Marineford Luffy against the one-tailed Valley of the End Naruto. Now, the common argument you'll hear for Naruto here relies on 2 points. Gear 2 is too fast, and Rubber is immune to Naruto's blunt force attacks. But is that actually true?
Yeah.
Let's talk about speed first. Luffy's Gear 2 transformation is a physiological doping technique that speeds up his blood flow to increase his speed.
Yeah, multiplies his stats by a large margin.
And attack potency. Thanks to this, Luffy was able to immediately learn and use the Soru technique of the 6 powers, which allows the user to move at superhuman speed by kicking the ground at least 10 times in the blink of an eye. And while that was most definitely impressive, especially back in Water 7 when it was first introduced, let me point out that Naruto was getting better speed feats much earlier than Luffy. Back in the first arc, Naruto was able to completely overwhelm Haku after getting his 9 Tails amp. That was simply unhinged. I mean, Haku can move between his mirrors at what is allegedly the speed of light.
Wrong. This is a very wrong statement. One, because that makes the scaling terrible. 2, data book statements. And to give back backup on both. Data book has been misinterpreted multiple times. I cannot tell you exactly the speed Haku would be calced at, but the light speed feat is from the data books. The same data books that in which say Kurama has the power to burn the world to ashes, which would make Kurama himself planetary. But then that wouldn't make sense because that Kurama that got beat by Minato is planetary, which make Minato over planetary. And then you can see where these jumps now come in. It's like, oh, word? So that means if you're able to box a Biju, you're planetary. Does that make Taka Sasuke planetary? You get what I'm saying? And then it just ricochets. Oh, if he's relative, slightly weaker even to the Kage, that make Onuki planetary, but getting whooped by a meteor from Madara. And even this speed feat, here in one of the techniques that Sasuke created later on in the story, people misinterpret it and believe it is said that it moves at light speed. But I think it's White Zetsu confirms that it's the speed of lightning. So make this make sense. Shippuden, which is so many episodes after this, has an attack that is cutting edge that can only move at the speed of lightning, but part 1 Haku was moving at light speed. And then also take into account, in the war, Mabui has the light speed transportation technique, in which she states that when ninjas go into it, they can die. So it implies within the Naruto verse consistently that light speed is the pinnacle, by having the lightning speed, which is so much slower than light speed, be a Shippuden, which is like mid to high tier feat. And then not only that, at the highest levels, Mabui states that people can die from the light speed movement technique, and they have the Raikage tanking it because he says their body because he's the third Raikage son, And she was like, oh yeah, their genetics are just like that. But Tsunade, a top tier in the verse, gets extremely injured from it. Almost to where it's like not fatal, but like severe injured. And she pops her little Sage mode joint, her special little mode to heal that damage. So you have proof that mid to high tier in the story, people cap at lightning speed, as that's an impressive feat. And then you have proof towards the end of the story that everyone but the top of the top tiers are below light speed. And if people were moving light speed, techniques like Minato's wouldn't be impressive. Because if they're moving light speed here and they get multiple and multiple times stronger and stronger and faster, at some point when you're multiple times faster than light, you're faster than short form teleportation. If I'm teleporting 1,000 light years away and it's instantaneous, and you can only move at light speed, it'll take you 1,000 years to get there. If you can move 10 times light speed, it'll take you 100 years to get there. So the point is, techniques like Minato's, where he's teleporting in that short distance instantaneously, would essentially be useless because at that distance, if niggas are moving so much many times faster than light, that instantaneous movement is very easy to react to because light moves almost instantaneously. When Minato gets there, light is already there. You get what I'm saying? A shadow is already present. So it's like someone who's able to move and then therefore react at light speed. Techniques like that would be useless in verse.
And yet, in Chapter 28, Naruto is still able to catch him. Now, of course, that isn't enough to scale Arc 1 Naruto to light speed because Haku's mirror jumps aren't pure light speed movement. They're more like high-speed dashes between preformed ice mirrors. But even so, between Naruto catching Haku mid-jump and Luffy using Soru, which do you think is more impressive? Moving on from there, back in the Chunin exams, Sasuke, who Naruto
Bro's leaving it as a question. I know pre-time skip Luffy is like, can I think of a light speed feat? I guess there's the feat with Foxy with the little beams he shoots. Cause those are, what are they called? Not particles. I think it's particles. Something like that. Photons, there it is. Those are photons which are stated to move at the speed of light. And I was filler arc Luffy moving like that. You know what I'm saying? So genuinely, and mind you, Foxy is not a top tier at all. So it would relatively put people at light speed. And there's other feats that are calced out to be light speed. Like Kizaru's base speed is light speed. People thought his like speed is not light, it's not confirmed. But later on now, Kizaru confirmed in the manga, oh yeah, let me show you the speed of light plus acceleration. So he shows this is my base speed, I can go higher than that. You have characters like Marco outpacing him and catching up to him mid-attack in Marineford. So we're talking about Marineford. Luffy, who is still, leagues below, we know Marco has to be faster than light speed because he caught up to Kizaru, who was at minimum going light speed. We have the feat I mentioned before with him dodging Foxy's beams. All of these things considered, it is a general consensus that light speed is very, very possible at this point in the story. And then take into account the Soryu, take into account that with the power levels, you can figure out that Gear 2 is a multiplier of this amount. You then take his highest speed feat, multiply by that, and you can easily get him over light speed. Even with Kuma's things, because it repels like everything, including light, oxygen, all types of stuff. So that says something to his speed as well. So there's a lot of different feats pre-time skip that show that he's light speed, not including, because Marineford is like right before the time skip. So not including Gear 2, he was moving at speeds comparable. So I would argue you can get him way over. If you think the Gear 2 multiplier is like a 2 or 3 times multiplier, cool. If I'm not mistaken, people have done the calculations like an 8-time multiplier or higher than that. But at minimum, 2 to 3 time multiplier. He's already fast and light. You can't quantifiably say which range. Take that, multiply light speed by 2 or 3, and he's 2 to 3 times light speed. So Marineford Luffy is not being touched in the One Piece verse until you get to end of War Naruto, because people will calc his dodging the light fang as light speed. That's where you get light speed conversations in Naruto. Past that point. Or if you want, you can make an argument for maybe the Raikage.
scales to was already outperforming supersonic sound-based attacks. By the time Naruto enters that one-tailed mode against Sasuke at the Valley of the End, his speed had reached a point where he casually speed blitzed Curse Seal level 1 Sasuke. Sasuke personally admitted that he couldn't keep up, which is also why he had to evolve his Sharingan to 3 Tomoe. But even Sasuke's 3 Tomoe Sharingan, which is designed to predict movement based on muscle tension, was unable to keep up with Naruto, and he had to evolve his Curse Seal too. Though this was partly because of Naruto's feral movements, where the chakra cloak was moving independently of Naruto's actual limbs, which is actually another good point because when it comes to the verdict on speed, Luffy's linear movements in Gear 2 is too straightforward. Naruto's cloak, on the other hand, creates unpredictable multi-vectored attacks that move at speeds that are comparable at worst, if not outright superior. Ultimately, Naruto wins the speed exchange here. Next,
did y'all hear the argument I just presented? Based off that, I would say Naruto doesn't have it until War, minimum. And that's just based off what I know. That's based off the simple, like, point-by-point joint. But if you disagree, let me know.
Let's address what I call the blunt force fallacy. This is the myth that Luffy is immune to attacks like the Rasengan just because he's made of rubber, but it fundamentally misunderstands the actual physics of how a Rasengan works.
I'm gonna hear him out.
See, the Rasengan is not about blunt force, not even close. It's a grinding, rotating sphere of contained turbulence. Think back to when Jiraiya first explained it. He showed that it grinds into the target and causes severe internal rotation. We see this confirmed during the iconic rooftop fight between Naruto and Sasuke. When that Rasengan hits the water tank, Sasuke starts grinning because his Chidori did more damage to the front. But then he notices the back of...
But that supports the argument of it being blunt force damage. Blunt force damage normally isn't sure, like, it's... Like, think of Sasuke's, it's piercing damage. Impulse is something you learn in physics, which is just damage over time. Basically, force over time. So that is the same way cars now are not designed to be indestructible. They're designed to crumple because the force of whatever collision you're in is divided over a longer period of time because the car is crumpling in. If the car were to be indestructible thing hits indestructible thing, force over time, there's no time that the force goes. The second they collide, maximum force is transferred. So the impulse there, F over T, if the T is 0 or very close to 0, your impulse is like really, really, like, it might as well just be 0. You get what I'm saying? But if you have something that is stretched out, is this over 10 seconds, that impulse is going to be a lot, you know what I'm saying? Smaller. So just based off how that looks like blunt force trauma. Now, I do know that it does, like you just said, it is like that turbulence into the internals, but Luffy is made out of rubber. So his internals are rubber as well. And the reason I was about to say it doesn't matter, because unless it's directly cutting force, it doesn't do anything, because what we see before Marineford, when he's fighting Moria crushes him into a paper-like surface. It is so thin that it's literally like paper, to the point where you can't see Luffy at all. That's how thin he stretched, and he survived that, and then proceeded to clutch the dub in that fight. That more than proves that blunt force of any kind cannot affect him. It also more than proves that his organs operate in the same course as rubber. Unless the Rasengan is specifically Dura Neg, then no. It is Dura Neg in the sense of, like he just said, it's internal attack. So if your skin is the only thing tough about you, right? So say, I don't know, someone dropped a grenade in your throat, pause, and it blew up. If that would kill you because you're like translucent from the boys, then the Rasengan will work on you. But if you are a cartoonish figure like Luffy is, to the point where he's like inflated his body and tanked cannonballs, it gets to the point where it's like, if you were to eat a grenade, it's not going to do nothing to his internals. So the same way, this attack going into his body is negating the durability of his skin, not his entire body's durability. And as he can be crushed to paper and not take any damage relative to, like, while he was fighting him, then this Rasengan is not hitting for nothing. I'm not going to lie.
And it's completely flabbergasted. As it turns out, Naruto's Rasengan completely shredded the back of the tank by displacing the water through violent rotation.
Shred it. And you see what I'm saying? Like, that wordplay is giving, like, it cut it up. It didn't shred it. Look at it. It's an impact. It looks like a canopy after a bomb goes off.
That is exactly why it makes Luffy's rubber irrelevant. You see, rubber is great at handling compression, like a standard punch, but it is incredibly weak against torque and shearing forces.
And again, I would agree if Luffy was like regular rubber, because in the same token, if you take paper and try to fold it an infinite number of times, you can't. You can only fold it like 12 times, I think. If you take that and try to fold it again on a hydraulic press, what happens to the paper? The paper explodes. So even though the paper, in theory, is immune to blunt force to some extent, with enough pressure, it explodes because it can't be confined to this point that kind of um ignores like the laws of density, pressure over volume. It is now being pressurized to a point that it cannot withstand, so it explodes. Luffy was crushed to a point where, at his size, he should not have been able to withstand, and he not only didn't explode, he proceeded to still be conscious and like still get attacks off without like impairing his mental. So again, like it just, I'm not gonna say he hasn't seen One Piece, but it seems like he's looking at it from a physics approach, but I don't think it's bad when it comes to each show isn't like as deep as it could be.
Gun is simply going to grab the rubber of his skin and twist it until it rips, all while
It
grinding
can't
his internal
tear.
organs to pieces. Internal damage
His internal organs are not like they are rubber. They're not normal.
has always been Luffy's Achilles heel. Just think back to how badly Lucci's Six King pistol hurt Luffy with its
That's hockey, by the way. That's hockey. That's what the powers were. They were like literally like beginnings to hockey. They were like the precursor to hockey. That is the point of the six powers to some extent. Like Geppo, the Skywalk, you're pushing off of an invisible force. They're not actually jumping off the air. This, the invisible thing about the Admirals, the Marine Fort to block Whitebeard's attack. I think it was Whitebeard's attack. Put their hands up like this and it emitted something. Even at Sabaody with Sentomaru, he did the emission from his hand. It was literally hockey. So what Lucci's doing here is a form of hockey, albeit it could be weakened, you could argue, but it's a form of hockey. So it's negating the fact that his internals are rubber. Hence the fact that if this attack was as pressurized as it looks, his body would still stretch. And then he would still take the damage because his internals would be cooked. But as you can see, his body's not stretching at all. Why is that? Because there's hockey in this attack to some extent. And this is why when people say, oh, Oda didn't write hockey in, he's writing the story backwards. He could be. He could be coming up with stuff as he goes. But with the amount of foreshadowing into things, it's like, again, when people come up with shows like this, the thought has been there for like at least 5-10 years before it even got serialized. So for the foreshadowing to be as solid as it is, either a really good what's that called? Improv specialist, or again, this is foreshadowing.
internal impact in chapter 425. Rasengan is like that.
And again, like, you get what I'm saying? He's not wrong, but he doesn't know that that's a form of hockey. The same way Smoker hitting him with the Sea Prism John cooks him. It's like, it's just stuff that if you know, you know.
But exponentially worse. It's basically designed to take perfect advantage of Luffy's Achilles heel. But wait, it actually gets worse for Luffy when you consider the numbers. In part 1, Naruto can summon thousands of shadow clones. And remember, unlike the fodder enemies you see in One Piece, these clones are relative to Naruto's own.
No, they're not. Yes, they are. They're relative to Naruto's strength. They're not relative to his durability. They are one-tappable, for one. For two, he's wrong by the speed feat by putting Luffy as like barely light speed and putting Naruto at light speed easily. They're not relative at all. But to assume they're relative, cool. Luffy has assuming they're relative without Gear 2, he is now above relative. So he's now faster. Fast enough to where he has an edge. And then take into the account that he's significantly stronger. Like in One Piece, they're like throwing buildings. They drop buildings on people's heads early One Piece. So this is not just, oh, look how much damage he did. This is not AP. This is pure raw physicals. This little kid of a Naruto, he can't tank those attacks. And again, the clones don't always spawn like this. If they're all in front of Luffy, that's just a Gum Gum Gatling. And it takes one punch to, you know what I'm saying? Or destroy the floor. When they end up hitting the bottom of the joint, they're going to take the fall damage. Luffy isn't.
Strength, which means Luffy can't easily one-shot them like he usually does with fodder. Now sure, if
I thought this was Marine for Luffy. And now he's like saying the clones aren't fodder. The clones are fodder. Their strength is relative to Naruto, but their durability isn't. There's only two ways you can look at Conqueror's Haki. You can look at it as based off willpower, which it is, your will imposing over another person's will. So shadow clones don't have a will of their own. They follow instructions. There are fillers where they turn against Naruto when they show that they have willpower, maybe even willpower stronger than his. If that's the case, Naruto is the fodder he can conquer a Haki. But not going off filler, they don't have a mind of their own. They follow the commands they're given. Knowing that to be the case, they're like computers. So their will is, using like small angle approximation theory, very close to zero. So yes, Haki is washing any shadow clones. Like Haki takes shadow clones out the conversation. To keep it a thou wow with you.
Luffy locks in hard enough, he may be able to burst them all with his Conqueror's Haki, but let's not forget that at this stage, Luffy could not use it consciously.
Yeah, he doesn't have Conqueror's Haki. I was wondering, I was like, why is he bringing that up? I was confused.
He'll need some kind of trigger, and even then, he won't be able to use it multiple times. Naruto, on the other hand, especially thanks to the chakra leaking out from the Nine Tails, can just keep spamming shadow clones and simply overwhelm Luffy's ability to dodge. Consider the math here. If Naruto spawns 8,000 clones, and 90% of them jump him while the...
Again, I think he's correct under the assumption that they're relative, because again, if you take two relative people, experience aside, which Naruto obviously has less experience than Luffy, but take experience aside, don't get it wrong, battle IQ is still astronomical. The Demon Wind technique he did with Sasuke, part 1, phenomenal, right? But Luffy has experience fighting way more opponents with way more vast of abilities. So, yeah, if you take experience aside, if you take like 100, mind you, can do like 1,000 minimum. You take 100 V1, that one is losing. It doesn't matter what the durability these people are, as long as they get one hit off, that's cool. Because if each of them gets one hit off before you poof them, that's 100 hits, not including the main nigga that you can't one tap. So amongst the time that these hundreds is getting a hits off, this man can get multiple hits off by the time you poof one of the clones. So yeah, assuming they're relative, he gets cooked here, for sure. For sure. But looking at his arsenal, again, way more experience. Gum Gum Pinwheel spins his leg around to hit the whole John. Gum Gum UFO. Naruto doesn't have the ability to fight at range, for one, in part 1. For 2, he has no AoE attacks before summons. Maybe you could argue his chakra, but like it still moves in uniform. It's not something you can just emit. It has to like huss. You feel me? It has to be like a swipe. So knowing that he's not winning, even in his jumping situation, assuming they're relative, but knowing that they're not, it's like, come on, dog. And then knowing that he copied Soryu, which is one of the forms of Haki, I mean, it's still a reach, but you could argue he could use the little, you know what I'm saying? The joint Luffy used, which is technically Duranag. It's
The other 10% bring out the Rasengan. The only thing Luffy gets in that situation is a massive L. Plus, unlike Naruto's unholy chakra reserves, Luffy's Gear 2 is eventually going to wear him out and leave him gassed. Then there are also other factors.
I think that's fraudulent. Like, even that picture he uses from Gear 5, Luffy fought Lucy for a good period of time. Like, they sent the Buster Call in. There was time before the island exploded from, like, the Buster Call or something. He was fighting for at least a good 15, 20 minutes. There's little to no fights, OG Naruto, that last that long. Like, the Zabuza joint was exchange. They weren't always fighting from the jump. Zabuza was using clones. We're talking Luffy fighting someone stronger than him for, like, 15, 20 minutes straight. If you want to make this argument that they're relative, and in strength they 100% aren't, 15 minutes is more than enough time to take care of Naruto. And that's a low ball on how long he fought Luffy.
Just like Naruto being able to summon Gamabunta, who can use the water release technique gunshot. This fires a humongous pressurized bullet of water that, if it hits Luffy, will most definitely miss.
This is also wrong. I don't know where people get this messed up. In the One Piece verse, Oda confirms that pools and tubs can still mess up a Devil Fruit user. Why is that? Because in verse, the water all comes from the same place. It comes from the sea. Same way how in our real life, our planet is mostly water. The One Piece planet is way more mostly water. And that water goes up and it comes down through precipitation. And then that is filtered and given as water bottles. It's given as da-da-da. And they're able to drink water bottles. They just can't have it above like a certain level of their body. So if you were assuming Gamabunta is using this seawater, not any seawater, this particular versus seawater, then sure. With a huge blast like that, Luffy will be covered from a certain point, and yes, he's cooked. But knowing the nuances of the verse and the fact that it has to be that particular seawater, and that's something Oda's gonna explore like lore-wise in One Piece, no, it doesn't work. And then two, in the Naruto verse, it's explicitly stated that the chakra is not the same as the element. The water that they're creating with water chakra is a release on chakra. Like, so chakras and everything. Chakras in nature, chakras in the air. So if you were to think of chakra like Nen or something, or like an aura, like a Green Lantern's like aura, like their ability to control constructs. It's like that. Chakra can be molded, as we know. You were just taking the chakra that is there and giving it an elemental release. You are relating it to an element that exists. So you're taking your regular chakra, pure energy source, and converting it to earth, or converting it to water, or converting it to fire, etc., etc., etc. But it is like a transformation on what pure chakra is. It is not like you just went and pulled water from the sea. This chakra that you're creating is just regular water. It's pure water. If anything, you can relate it to like ionized water and deionized water. When you're doing a chemistry experiment or any other experiment involving like conductivity, you want to use pure water, because pure water is actually not good for us. It's kind of poisonous because it lacks certain minerals and ions. It's very difficult for it to conduct charge. It's not seawater. You get what I'm saying? But seawater, which we're filtering, in the filtering process, it still maintains the minerals of the rocks and all of the other minerals we need to survive. And that goes into your body. So, again, another like fallacious statement, but we'll let it rock. Also, he used fallacious off jump, and based off the way he's like structuring the video, it kind of lets me know this is like a swinging bias, but I'll let it rock. I'm still going like, and that's really for anybody in the comments who may feel like I'm like defending Luffy. I'm not trying to defend anybody. I'm just trying to give reasonings behind feats. That's why like I gave an anti-feat for Naruto. If I was just trying to defend Luffy, I just like essentially blank his stats to be as high as they could. I pad his stats. But I'm also talking about some of the feats he's mentioning about Naruto and clarifying what they actually are, bringing up the physics behind it, etc., etc.
Mimic the energy draining properties of the sea. So, looking at the verdict for round 1, Naruto wins this mid difficulty. Luffy's Gear 2 speed is not enough to give him the edge. The Rasengan has higher attack potency than any of Luffy's brute force attacks, and Naruto simply has too much clutch options.
Pulls up the feats. This is like Noah's Ark. It's supposed to hold people. If you want to try to scale it, Enel is not like Luffy. He's not short, but let's say Enel's 5'10". That's at least, if you want a pixel scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's say 6 Enels. That's very off. I wasn't being accurate in my measurement. And it's likely going to be larger. This, just the gold part, is 6 Enels. And it's way small. Like what's above deck is way smaller than what's below deck. So if this is 6 Enels, and Enel is 5'10", that is 5 times 12. You get 50, 60. So you have 70 inch Enel. And I said it was 6. So 70 times 6. What's that? 21. So that would be 21 plus 21, 42. And then you're dealing with 70 times 6. So 420, roughly. 420 inches of height, right? And then, you can divide it by 12 to get that in feet. This thing is huge. This destroyed a water tower. This building is bigger than the cliffs where Naruto and Sasuke fought in their first fight in OG Naruto. And this Giga Pistol destroyed it with a singular fist. He's pulling up feats that are like, proving that the AP of that is not higher than this AP. Not to mention, Naruto's not very durable at all. In verse, he can get cut. Yeah, Luffy can get cut too, but you have to hit him with a certain amount of force when you're cutting the nigga. You feel me? In this verse, a singular kunai like these, at that amount of force, is going through you. In this verse, if someone was giving you Dragon Ball level punches, which they do in One Piece, that like go through your gut damn near, it's killing you. It's going through your body. So keeping this in mind, this amount of force, and then force is pressure over area. That's why bullets have such kick to them. Small area, high amount of pressure. if we're saying the force is the same, and you just convert this area and downscale it to the size of his regular hand, he'd be able to punch through the stomach.
like the Nine Tails Chakra and Gamabunta.
He does have healing, but like that in Naruto, people don't heal from stuff like that. That's
Now,
fatal.
moving into round 2, we hit the post-time skip era, and this is where things get more complicated. We're pitting Gear 5 Luffy against 6 Paths Naruto from the end of the war. This is what I call the scaling cliff, because this is the point where the side with no case starts to slide into irrelevance. The fact is, the gap in scaling becomes too massive to lowball. The entire argument for Luffy rests on Gear 5 and this concept of Toon Force. But is that true? Will Toon Force actually allow him to clutch a W? The answer is no. Toon Force is way overhyped in these debates. Gear 5 doesn't actually give Luffy the power of imagination or
It does. His Toon Force isn't Bugs Bunny level, feats wise, but he created goggles from his hair that were a completely different color from his hair. He created a baseball bat out of biting it with his teeth from a material that wasn't wood. It is Toon Force, to be very clear. But 2, again, he doesn't need this Gear 5. People are like missing the physicals. It's literally like putting up, like think about what they did at the versus battles. They put up Ichigo versus Yusuke. They scale completely differently. And in terms of the Bleach verse scale, significantly higher. It's like one of my homies recently forgot about the scaling of 7 Deadly Sins. He said, who's winning, Asta or Meliodas? And he said, I'm going Asta. Because Asta has anti-magic, using verse equalization. Everyone in 7 Deadly Sins verse uses magic. So Asta has a contender to be like, a problem in a verse. But then when you look at the physical feats, no, he doesn't. The feats people need to do with magic in Black Clover, people are doing with physicals in like part 1, season 1, season 2 of 7 Deadly Sins. So you have to take into the physical scaling into account. And when you take into mind everything I just said, logically, early Naruto is nowhere near light speed. Here, there's a case for light speed because he dropped the Fang. He dodged the Fang. He dodged that not in base. He dodged that in mode. So you can only get his reaction in like speed feats to the beginning of post-time skip Luffy. And this is not including the fact that Luffy has observation haki. Luffy has like all of his hacks are being ignored here. Because if they're relative, Luffy wins. Because with observation haki, we've seen with Katakuri, they're really having a conversation with each other multiple seconds ahead, like 5, 6, 10 seconds ahead of each other. So if you're relative in speed and your opponent can see 5, 6 seconds into the future, minimum, they can see your next probably 2 to 3 moves. And how do you compete with that? You get what I'm saying? And then again, the experience on Luffy's part, he has way more experience in combat at this point. Fighting more people, if you want to give less XP per grunt, cool. But variety of opponents, people like Kaido, people like Smoker, people like Caesar, people like Magellan, people like him trying to throw hands with Buggy, all types of people. So it's like when you take that into account, Naruto, this point he's making goes the opposite. It's not in his favor at all. The only thing people can give Naruto credit for is like the true secret orbs, which people claim to have existence erasure, but based off like the feats of them, they don't have existence erasure. So it's like,
reality warping abilities. I mean, come on, he isn't Grimmy from Bleach. If he could actually do what Luffy scalers think he can do, why didn't we see him unimagine the 5 elders out of existence?
See, I don't like that. Also, Luffy scalers, it feels like a very, very biased video, I'm not gonna lie.
Since back in Egghead. See, the whole power of imagination discourse is flawed. What Gear 5 actually does is allow Luffy to rubberize his environment and his targets. He can turn the ground into rubber.
Not true. He said it was flawed. That is what happens with typical Paramecias. Luffy's fruit is not a Paramecia. Sorry, that's a spoiler. It's his own. What did you see Doflamingo do when he had his string fruit? He turned the entire environment into string. Luffy, being at his power's imagination, he believes his power is rubber. It is not. It's not a Paramecia, it's a Zoan. Zoans gives you the ability of the animal. Kaido has dragon abilities. It scales, kind of like how Spider-Man is as strong as he is with the abilities of a spider. Kaido has the, in theory, abilities and physical stats of a dragon, multiplied by his size and him being a human. These fruits give you the ability of the animal multiple times over. And there's your regular form, there's your hybrid form, and then there's your full form. Luffy, we've seen him use his regular form. We've seen him have hybrid transformations with things like Gear 4. And then his full Zoan form, in theory, is like Gear 5, right? But knowing that it's not a paramecia, it doesn't follow the same rules as a paramecia. Because look at Kaido's awakening. Look at Yamato's awakening. Look at Lucci's awakening, actually. You get the clouds, the same clouds Luffy has, and you get a crazy physical stat buff, right? But Luffy's able to rubberize the ground, not because it is because of imagination, but the reason why is because he believes he has a paramecia. And the only paramecia he's seen has the abilities that he's using, but, for strength. So very clearly, this statement is flawed because he's using imagination to nerf his own awakening. And it may sound kind of corny. It's like, oh, he's nerfing himself with his own imagination. But we also see in Gear 5, like I said, him create glasses from his hair. They weren't there. Him creating the slingshot out of the thing. He rubberized it, so I'll give you that. Him creating the bat out of something that was nowhere near the same size or nowhere near the same material. He converted it to another material. Him taking the fire he got when he got hit by Kaido and like running past it. Him throwing the lightning bolts at Kaido. Lightning is not something physical that you can grab. So you can't argue he gave it rubber's properties and made it elastic. No, he materialized the lightning to be a physical thing to be thrown. When you put all of that together, his ability is imagination.
Reflect attacks, or turn his opponent into rubber so they can't hurt him. He's basically just applying the properties of rubber to the reality around him. He can't do actual reality manipulation like being able to erase concepts, create things, or stop time.
He hasn't done stuff like that. And especially because, think about Bugs Bunny and them. They don't really be using time stop. Can they? Yes. But they don't use that regularly. That's not what you hear when you hear Toon Force. You hear surviving, unrealistic surviving, accidents. Like, oh, an anvil fell on my head. Oh, I fell off this cliff. I'm still alive. You get what I'm saying? A lot of it is associated with rubber. Or not rubber, but the ability to be immune to blunt force trauma. But, yeah, there's that. But then there's also the fact that I'm not doing it. I don't think anybody's arguing Luffy has reality manipulation. Toon Force and reality manipulation are not the same thing. There is some overlap, but they're not the same thing.
And he definitely can't negate existence erasure, which I want you to keep in mind.
He's about to bring up the truth-seeking orbs.
Because it'll be relevant in a couple of minutes. Anyway, having established what Gear 5 can and can't do, let's start with the big one, the light.
Now, Pete, just now, he said, and this is something you see when people dissect political debates as well. He just said, having established what it can and can't do, that is doing a heavy lifting there. He's implying to you that he's just fully explained to you what Gear 5 is capable of. And if you just heard what I said, you know that he just implied the most surface level of Gear 5. And if you know about the show, you know this is like the weakest. That is the weakest interpretation of Gear 5, the interpretation of it he has. So he's already lowballing Luffy, but instead of realizing oh, this is what we've seen him do so far, his statement is this is what it can and can't do. He immediately put a limit on it. Keep that.
Speed debate. You've probably heard fans argue that Luffy has been faster than Light since the time skip because he dodged those pacifista lasers at Sabaody. But if we take a second to actually analyze the manga, it's pretty clear that this is just aim dodging.
People are calling it aim dodging. I think this is AI. People are calling this aim dodging because he's using observation haki.
Luffy uses observation haki to sense the intent before the laser.
I'm officially a Navy soldier, you're under arrest, I'm not going to get in trouble.
Was even fired. He calls it slow.
Too slow, Gear 2.
Slow because he already knows exactly where the.
And you see what I'm saying? There was no statement backing up what he just said. So everything he just said to you was implication off of a panel with no statement backing it up. You have the free belief to believe his implication, whether you want to or not. But the logic behind it is he has no proof that the same way he just said, oh, there's a Gear 5 fallacy. His statement just then was a fallacy. We have no way of knowing if that's true. It's non-falsifiable. We don't know if it was haki or not. But what we do know, like I said, Luffy's been light speed before time skip. So now that he's in time skip, he's beyond light speed. And if you want to argue that he's not, Kizaru's attacks, like you said, at minimum are light speed. These robots are memorable, mimicking Kizaru's attack, which is at minimum light speed. It is likely faster. So Luffy dodging by only having to use Gear 2. I saw him do the little Gear 2 thing. And he's capable, mind you, it's not a full gear 2, his skin is not pink. He's capable of dodging an attack that was Admiral level that was a problem for him prior. That is what's important. It's not Admiral level because it's like slightly weaker. It's like a modified version, but that is the point. It is showing his growth.
Shot is going to land. That's reaction speed boosted by observation haki, not his actual physical movement speed. Of course, that doesn't make it any less relevant, but it does change how you see base Luffy's speed. Think about it, if Luffy could truly move at the speed of light, he wouldn't be getting mogged by Gazelle Man. I mean, how is Luffy taken off guard by a character who can only run at 200 kilometers?
Now, he's trying to make an anti-feat about a character sneaking past Luffy. Mind you, plenty of anti-feats for Naruto. So I'm not going to go the route of going, oh, ignore this anti-feat. This is an anti-feat. But this is not him in combat. This is not him attacking someone. And you could argue, oh, this is a reaction speed debuff, but this is an off-guard reaction speed debuff. His observation, let's argue, wasn't on. Because we know if his observation was on, you would have saw that happen. But if you take the claim of a chilling in a suit at a wedding and getting off guarded like the Avengers or some shit, and going, as you can see, they claim he has super senses, but he got off guarded. You're using a character at their weakest and ignoring any feats they have in actual combat, and you're going to compare them to the feats of a character in combat and then also at their peak. It's just very disingenuous.
Per hour. But what about Gear 5? We know that when he used Gear 5 against Lucci, he immediately broke the sound barrier, which puts him at supersonic speed.
It was more than that.
Then he fought
But Pete, what he just did. Debuffed him with an anti-feat that happened after the pacifista. Tried to hit him with an anti-feat that happened outside of combat. Then tried to debunk a feat in Gear 5 playing with Lucci and saying, oh, he only hit hypersonic just then. And now he's about to debunk his speed even further with Kizaru being light speed.
Really against Kizaru, who can move at the speed of light. So doesn't that mean Luffy?
The same anime and the same manga where you get that. The anime episode where you got the clip from, Kizaru states that he can use acceleration. For one. Meaning he is able to take light and that's his base speed and he can move faster than that. For two, every devil fruit gives you more ability than the element itself. If you're specifically talking about Logias. Look at Ace. When he clashed with Blackbeard with his sun technique and Blackbeard used his dark technique, the island looked like Punk Hazard, but it was only during the clash. But there's no living fire that exists that would be able to do that. The clash was, in theory, like a black hole almost, and like still be that bright. Take what Akainu and other admirals, Akainu and Aokiji did on Punk Hazard. It's an island that is permanently covered in ice and permanently covered in lava from them using their devil fruit abilities. Not these are residuals. No, it is stuck. One side ice, one side fire, a lava. It's permanent. And our battle happened like multiple years ago. 2 years ago minimum. It happened like right after the war almost. So again, you have someone whose devil fruit gives some light abilities, same type of devil fruit, a Logia, same rank as the other admirals, and you're gonna say he can only move at light speed by highlighting him mentioning the speed of light as it's relevant to his ability, but you're taking that as face value of at like admission of guilt. Oh yeah, I can only move at light speed. Y'all got me. Well, he's one, not trying, and two, attacking is way under his weight class. Yes, he would just tell them his max speed. That makes plenty of sense.
Scales to Lightspeed 2, that is actually a good point. Even though the power scaling community hesitates to put Luffy in the Lightspeed tier, we did see him
Nobody hesitates to put this guy on Lightspeed tier. I promise you nobody does. But this implies to me that he's heavily in the Naruto joint. To see a Naruto and Luffy joint, you have to be heavily into the power scaling joint. But he's also heavily into the Naruto joint, which is why he has all of these feats of Naruto's overly amped and these feats of Luffy overly debunked. Because when you go into those comments, niggas are going to glaze Naruto. Niggas are going to debuff Luffy. If vice versa, you came to a One Piece joint, I would have been talking about how the One Piece world is bigger, which confirmed it is. But I don't know about how much bigger. So I'm not going to say, oh, it's multiple times bigger, the gravity's going to be higher. So if Luffy's light speed there, if we're putting in inverse equalization and he's on Naruto's gravity, which is like similar to Earth's, he'd be 2 times faster minimum. I'm not gonna say that, but I could, and that wouldn't be wrong to say, and it wouldn't be misreading the statement. We get a planet, we get a size via a globe of the One Piece verse, and we see how big it is. We see that the Sea Kings in the verse, and we know how big they are, and there's millions and billions of them. We see how deep the ocean goes, which can give you like the circumference of the planet damn near. We see how high Skypiea is, which tells you the height. We have the height of the atmosphere, assuming Skypiea is the peak, and go to Fishman Island, how deep that is, assuming that it's the below, like the lowest, ignoring the Earth's core. That alone gives you a size that is greater than Earth. If you take that as like the radius and let, go around. So knowing that, it's bare bones base bigger than Earth. But again, nobody's going to take that argument. And the same way he's not using that argument, it's the same way he's taking all of these Naruto arguments to the extreme.
Lit several of Kizaru's Lightspeed clones with Dawn Stamp. In their fight, he held the upper hand in close combat to the point where he was able to blitz Kizaru with his White Star gun. Of course, we have to
mind you, he did not blitz Kizaru. Kizaru was not trying. Kizaru was a top tier
factor in future sight, observation haki, and the fact that Kizaru was distracted.
Kizaru is an admiral. That implies that he knows all 3 types of haki. If I'm not mistaken, that is one of the requirements. That's why when Sentomaru said he was a vice admiral, he bust out the little haki punch. So knowing that this is an admiral, he can at least use 2 types of haki. He was clashing with Rayleigh, a master of armament haki, so he bare minimum has armament. That's why he can also hurt Luffy, presumably. And bare minimum, I would assume he has observation. Because before Whitebeard threw his attack, all 3 admirals like these, trying to block it. That's Marine for it.
Acted by Vegapunk, which the point stands, thanks to Gear 5 and Future Sight, Luffy can replicate Lightspeed movements. Next, what about Naruto?
He just got him to light speed and then said, oh no, because of his Future Sight and stuff, that takes that away. He can only replicate light speed.
Can we say the same about him? Let's go through 6 paths Naruto's
like
feet and see how they stack up. First off, he was able to intercept Madara's truth-seeking orb and evade a Limbo clone. Intercepting that orb while it was flying in to kill Might Guy is impressive enough, but the Limbo feat is on another level. Let me explain why this is more impressive than Luffy keeping up with Kizaru. Limbo clones
comparing them off is crazy.
Exist in a parallel dimension. They are invisible and intangible to anyone without 6 paths chakra.
Okay. That doesn't sound like another dimension to me.
They move at the same speed as Madara, who was arguably the fastest being in the Naruto world at that point in time, and could use light speed attacks like Storm Release Light Fang.
I'll give you that. We can claim this is light speed.
Yet, Naruto evaded one mid-attack. He was literally about to fire a lava-style shuriken at Madara when a Limbo...
He has Sage Mode, by the way, which if you didn't know is the same as Future Sight to some extent. He can predict the intent of an opponent. It's not fully precognition, but you can predict like the intentions of an opponent, if I'm not mistaken.
Naruto evaded one mid-attack.
He's in his strongest form. He's not in base.
He was literally about to fire a lava...
As he just stated, without the Sage's 6 path chakra, also indicated by this, he wouldn't be able to see the Limbo. So any feats of Naruto's he's giving here is Naruto at his peak.
Style shuriken at Madara when a Limbo clone appeared right behind him, and Naruto sensed and evaded it perfectly. To put it as simply as possible, Luffy's
and he's a sensory ninja.
Future Sight and observation haki are limited because they require him to stay in a perfectly calm state of mind.
True and not true. True and not true. Because this feat is not an observation. This is a pre-observation feat. This is him fighting Enel, where he needed to have a calm state of mind. The same way how the 6 powers are haki at their lowest levels. And if you want to argue he has to stay calm and all of that, when he pulled up in Sabaody, he popped gear 2. He was provoked. He had a light speed attack coming towards him, but he was still able to keep his calm and use observation. Also, when him and Katakuri were fighting, he was using observation. Fight of his life. Katakuri is someone who scaled way higher than him at the time. So this argument falls apart.
Naruto's 6 path Senjutsu, however, gives him a passive, not omnidirectional sensory ability. Even if he's...
You see how when he brought up Luffy having precog, even when going against other people with precog, which cancels out his precog to some extent, we don't know whose is greater. So at that point, it's hearsay. he went, oh, but that's what precog does. So that's not really his feats. And you just admit it, and then even glazed his sensory ability by saying
Six Path Senjutsu, however, gives him a passive, nigh omnidirectional
nigh omnidirectional
sensory ability. Even if he's
sensory ability. That's passive. So that implies every feat he's done is because he has this sensory. So he's aim dodging. By your logic, the light speed dodging feat that I was trying to give him is aim dodging. It's not actually his speed.
Swing and someone attacks him from beyond his dimension, he can still sense and dodge it in.
Mind you, he's saying beyond his dimension. It's not beyond his dimension. It just said it's unseeable if you don't have Sage of Six Paths Chakra. They have Sage of Six Paths Chakra. So it is the same as if a regular was attacking you. There's no, you know what I'm saying? If a character like Itachi does something like that, it's beyond his dimension. He detected it. He sensed it from a parallel dimension. Naruto is sensing things that he can see that he's just not looking at. So it's the same as like a spider sense of source, which we know Sage Mode already gives him.
Time. Now, if you're still tempted to lowball this feat, it might be because you're underestimating Madara's Limbo clones. I've talked about how these clones can even bypass Infinity in my Kakashi vs. Gojo video. Definitely check that out if you haven't, but the bottom line is this. If Naruto can track and react to interdimensional attack from Tentel's Madara,
Interdimensional? Mind you, inter is the interaction between two different things. Interdimensional implies that there are beings beyond this dimension. So if this dimension, let's say, is 4-dimensional, there are 5-dimensional beings interacting with the 4th dimension. Calling them that, yeah, of course they bypass infinity. Our joint's 4-dimensional. We have forward and backwards, left and right, and then we have like diagonal or depth, and then we have time. So if they're 5th dimensional, they're beyond time, which means they're beyond infinity. So with this gassed up interpretation, sure. But they're not doing any crazy feats like a 5th dimensional being could, like rewinding time or moving through time instantaneously. No, they exist on another plane, which is all within the cosmology. So these multiple planes interact with each other all the time. You just can't see it. And you can't see it unless you have Sage of Six Paths Chakra. Clearly, based off the explanation, it is not this interdimensional thing. But looking at the wordplay that he's using, it's kind of like it's overdoing it. You get what I'm saying? It's like it's hyperbolic in nature.
do you really think Luffy's Gear 5 speed is going to give him an edge? Nothing Luffy
It's not his Gear 5 speed, big bro. His base speed is over light speed. You try to debunk it by saying he precogged it. And if you want to use that argument, Naruto doesn't have the light speed feat either because he precogged Madara's attack with his high omnidirectional sensory. So it's like, and his is passive. Luffy has to activate it. So you have no way of proving Luffy did what he did. But you just confirmed Naruto did what he did. So you just debunked him yourself.
he can do will be more impressive than Madara trying to attack Naruto from a parallel dimension.
Again, parallel dimension. Come on, bro.
Next, we have to talk about attack potency.
Someone will have to explain that to me because he's like, you know, glossing over it.
Luffy's strongest move in Gear 5 is still the Bajrang gun, an absolutely
Strongest feat we've seen so far in terms of destructive capacity, not AP.
massive fist infused with advanced
To clarify for those of you who don't know, destructive capacity is just what you're able to destroy. AP is what you're able to attack. So for example, in verses where damage is very important, but like the world needs to exist, take Dragon Ball for example, Goku has enough AP to destroy a planet with a punch, in theory. But he's not going to always be having his power flare out to output where he's going to use that destructive capacity because then the planet will be destroyed. That's why top tiers that are planet busters, like Frieza, which Frieza's not even a planet buster like pre-Namek, because even when he blew up, well, you can argue he's a planet buster when he blew up, Vegeta, but he would be the same strength, if not stronger, during the Namek joint, and he states that he uses the Destructo Disc kind of to go into the core to unstabilize the planet, which implies he didn't have the strength to blow it up. But you can then just say, oh, when he blew up Vegeta, he wasn't fighting a comp opponent, even though he was in his full power, which means his cap was way higher when he was fighting Goku. He couldn't blow up the planet, so he just destabilized it. Even when he's fighting Goku and Vegeta in blue, He uses a death beam to attack the core of the planet to make the planet blow up. He doesn't blow it up purely outright, and that's because AP is greater than AP is different from destructive capacity. So my versus like Dragon Ball, people have god tier AP, but the destructive capacity is relatively limited.
Conqueror's Haki that overpowered Flame Dragon Kaido.
This
We
is his
also have
highest
the White Star
destructive
Gun
feat
for
so
speed
far.
blitzing.
That is an AP feat. Attack potency. Kizaru is clashing with Rayleigh. Kizaru has different feats against these different people. Him tanking that scales his AP now to higher than his fight against Kaido. That's important.
However, Naruto can easily pull out a Rasengan that is on the same
But also, on Kaido, for Kaido's part, Kaido was fighting multiple people and was injured. Fighting multiple people and holding up the island when he was fighting Luffy. So, just because Luffy won doesn't put him over Kaido indefinitely.
scale and just as destructive as the Bajran gun. Take the planetary Rasengan for example. But what I put above the Bajran gun
Nigga said take the planetary Rasengan. It doesn't actually destroy the planet, Big Bird. You know that, right? At most, it destroys the city. If we're talking about destructive capacity, if we're talking about AP, nobody in Naruto verse can survive bullets, according to the writer. So their AP is butt. Big bro, what? And we're comparing that to a fist that punched through Kaido that jumped from Skypiea, which, to give y'all perspective, it's a huge island in the sky to the point where it's like upper atmosphere. Like, it'd be like jumping from the space station almost. But obviously like a little bit lower. And he survived that. Like, he hit the ground and everything. He just tanked it. And this is the person who this attack is going through to then destroy a massive floating island that is like a country. Wano country, that's what it was called. An entire country-sized island. What are we talking about, bro? And that's minimum. That's not including the size differences in One Piece. Because Kaido is huge as hell right now. But compared to the island's still bigger than it. Sea Kings and early on, even niggas like Whitebeard are like 20 meters tall. And in places like this, they look normal sized. That's important. That tells you the scale of everything around you. So the AP of a planetary Rasengan, like they're nowhere near, bro. I hate to say it.
are the tailed beast balls, which can vaporize basically everything in the blast area, and truth-seeking balls. I know I've gassed
Because you mentioned the blast area at all. You just said it can destroy anything in the blast area. You didn't mention the width of the blast area. You also didn't mention the constitution of the things there. Again, planet size matters, right? But that aside, what is being destroyed with that tail beast bomb, which is like a mountain range. And maybe a little bit bigger. Like even in Storm 4, when Madara does the Susanoo joint, he cuts like 4 mountains. It's not a country. Very different things. A singular country can have multiple mountain ranges. So it's like, you feel me?
them up already, but to put them into perspective, truth-seeking balls are a combination of all chakra natures, including yin-yang.
Shadow and light. An expansive Keke Mora Truth Seeker orb that contains each and every nature. This root time space is Mother's exclusive domain where she can directly extract chakra from Shinobi trapped in the infinite Tsukuyomi. This also debuffs the fuck out of her. She's using other people's chakra. Produce a Truth Seeker orb. Now, Truth Seeker orbs are not existence erasure, but even if they were, they're debuffed by the fact that everything in the Naruto verse consists of chakra. This realm that she created is made out of chakra. It is not a separate dimension. It is a time space that she created. Kind of like a domain expansion. That is technically a separate dimension compared to where she was just at. You know what I'm saying? It's like a pocket dimension within this outer dimension, so to speak. And it was created by chakra. And to do it, she needed chakra from the Shinobi trapped in Infinite Tsukuyomi. And this Infinite Tsukuyomi is hitting the entire world, by the way. So almost an entire world's amount of chakra to do this feat right here. Also, going back to my point before, everything in the Naruto versus chakra. So even nature, that's how like the Sage Mode joint works. So when you take something that combines every nature of chakra, if you want to argue it has existence erasure, it does, but specifically the chakra, which everything in Naruto is comprised of. This isn't an atomic attack like they described Naruto's Rasen Shuriken, which even that was an atomic, it was a cellular level attack. This is just something that contains every nature. Mind you, we know this. Wind nature amplifies fire nature, but water nature can put out fire. This is a stable combination of every nature, which would imply no matter what is attacking, this consists of every type of chakra, which would imply it has the ability to like put it out the same way water can put out fire. So if you want to argue existence erasure, it's not. It's just like any chakra it touches. Like the biggest debunk for it is when Minato gets hit by a Truth Seeker orb and it just takes off part of his arm. Existence erasure means that his entire body would have been cooked, like when Thanos snapped. You get what I'm saying? But that didn't happen, just his arm. And that's where I come to the educated conclusion, especially with this panel, that it's not existence erasure. It can just negate the chakra it touches. And that's why Naruto was able to deflect it away with his shoes or whatever, because he was probably able to use a protective layer of chakra the same way he was able to protect himself against Amaterasu, or the way Sasuke is able to protect himself from Infinite Tsukuyomi by having his Susanoo. Either that or you argue it's not existence erasure, because if it is, Naruto wouldn't even be able to kick it.
They can interact with and erase even intangible elements.
What intangible elements? Like what proof? What proof is
Of
this?
all chakra natures, including yin yang. They can interact.
This is someone reanimated by reanimation jutsu. Their body is made completely out of chakra. The same way everything is made out of chakra. So his body's made out of chakra. These bodies are made essentially purely out of chakra, out of jutsu. They are a jutsu. This isn't a jutsu, but it's something made out of chakra. This is a jutsu, which is just purely chakra in the form of chakra that's manipulatable. This doesn't prove existence erasure at all, especially the fact that I'm seeing fucking particles around. Whole thing needs to go.
Interact with and erase even intangible elements. To put that into perspective, if you put Naruto against the One Piece admirals and you don't equalize Haki and Chakra, Naruto still erases them all because he can directly eradicate their elemental bodies. Plus, unlike the Chakra, Naruto still.
He said if you don't equalize them.
Perspective, if you put Naruto against the One Piece admirals and you don't equalize Haki and Chakra, Naruto still erases.
Then that wouldn't be the case, because that attack was not only proven to not be existence erasure, as not Tobirama, that was Hiruzen. As Hiruzen was made out of jutsu, which is chakra particulates. When he got hit, did y'all see what happened? There were like ribbons of chakra everywhere, parts of the reanimation jutsu. When they go intangible, which they can't control, by the way, it's like an automatic thing. Unless you're like Katakuri, who didn't have a Logia, he was just pretending to have a Logia. It activates automatically. Even if that thing were to do what his Truth Seeker Orb did, it would just scatter him into light. And that's what they do already. And they literally reform from it. It's almost like the X-Men. If someone were to erase all of the ice on like Kizuru's body, not Kizuru, Aokiji's body, and melt it, he would just reform from that ice. Unless that attack had Armament Haki. And in that case, the elemental transformation just doesn't happen. Unless you have the natural counter, which we haven't seen for light. You could argue it's darkness, but if that's the case, they would have been got rid of Blackbeard. But we know the counter for sand was water, because he was intangible by becoming sand. Once sand clumps up, it's less intangible. It wasn't a Haki attack to where if I stab him with something covered in water, he's going to die. No. It made his ability slightly less effective. The same way how Lucci, using that lighter version of Haki, was able to make Luffy's body not stretch. But assuming you're not making them equal, without Haki at all, you cannot turn his body from not being light. So even if you shatter him to 1 billion microscopic photons of light, he'll just reform.
Erases them all because he can directly eradicate their elemental bodies. Plus, unlike the Bajrang gun, which the current Luffy can likely only use once before running out of gas, Naruto can spam tailed beast balls and truth-seeking balls multiple times. You see,
why are there no truth-seeking orbs left then?
Luffy's whole defense in Gear 5 relies on turning incoming attacks into rubber, but you simply cannot rubberize a truth-seeking ball.
Why can't you?
Because these things erase matter on contact.
All to dust in an instant. That doesn't mean it erases. Do you see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? Even with this, like when Shisui uses his Genjutsu in Storm 4, he says turn to dust. He's not actually incinerating you into dust. If someone were to hit you with a fire style, you could say they can turn you into dust. They're not actually turning you into dust. When he uses attack, this same attack that cut his body in parts, there were ribbons of chakra about this size still there. That's not dust. that's bigger than dust. Those are particulates that if I were to inhale, I would choke. It's not dust. And even if it is, that isn't existence erasure, as existence erasure in essence is being able to erase the existence of something. Meaning, if I were to punch my PC and break the glass, I didn't erase the existence of the glass. I just fractured it. The same way how when he hit Hiruzen, the particulates like around this size were still there. But if it was existence erasure, everything that got touched would no longer exist. It'd be almost like how when Gojo used his hollow purple on Toji, and like there was just a huge hole there. That's what would happen. But what he just used with that appeared to be blunt force damn near. But it did get rid of the durability that their chakra can give them. That's why they can survive fire styles and stuff. But as Kishimoto said, they can't survive guns because chakra can counter chakra. A naturally high chakra layer around you, which we confirmed no happens, is like kind of resisting the other chakra that someone's using. So in this case, he has something that gets rid of that barrier that you have. And that's why an attack that is not at the force of a gun can make your body turn to dust without erasing you from existence.
If Luffy tries to catch one of these spheres the same way he caught Kaido's blast breath, that sphere is going to disintegrate his hand. Keep in mind.
Disintegrate. Disintegration and existence erasure are two different things. But again, he caught lightning, which would, in theory, disintegrate his hand. Because if you do the calculations for lightning, lightning at a pinpoint is capable of destroying almost everything we have. Lightning, when it hits the ground, isn't that destructive because it discharges. It loses, it's three different stages. It loses some energy through the sound, it loses some energy through the heat transfer, and it loses its electricity and electrical energy through the discharge. But if you were to touch it yourself and it were to hit a finite point on your hand, a hole would be blasted through your hand. Because it wouldn't have that time. Maybe the sound would be discharged, right, to get rid of some of the excess energy, but the heat and the electrical energy are still there. So in this case, it's like, if you can turn anything to rubber, and that's anything, and if you want to try to verse equalize, if everything's made out of chakra, he's able to turn the ground into rubber, he's able to turn attacks that are made out of energy into rubber. Why can he not turn chakra, which is the root of all energy, into rubber? That's like a nonsensical argument. It doesn't matter how destructive the attack is. It's kind of like what Shinra did at the end of Fire Force, where someone hit him with disintegration, spoiler, disintegration beam, and he turned it into atmosphere. That's because he has reality manipulation. But in this case, Luffy has the ability to turn anything into rubber. I don't need reality manipulation when I can use it in this very finite way that turned their attack into something that's not damaging. You get what I'm saying? And that's where like the Toon Force becomes important, the imagination becomes important. Because if he's done that before, he has no reason to believe he can't do that to another type of attack, no matter what attack it is. And then once you know that, it's like, oh yeah, okay, you got it.
Mind that truth-seeking balls even disintegrated reanimated bodies, which are made of pure.
Oh my god.
Everyone thought Dragon Ball was dead, but now it's got more content than ever.
My reaction. My reaction. I'm gonna cut this out for y'all. Move. Playlist. Reacts. Here.
Made of pure chakra. If we equalize Haki,
he's missing the point.
Truth-seeking balls even disintegrated reanimated bodies, which
even disintegrated reanimated bodies
are made of pure,
chakra. And now look at the statement. He's using techniques based on reanimation, which turns this is probably truth seeker words, like just based off the context, which turns all ninjutsu to nothing. This is because this is not Obito talking. It's someone talking about Obito. All ninjutsu, not everything, just ninjutsu. Because of the sage chakra is the root of all chakra natures. If you can control that, of course you'd be able to snuff out chakra. The same way how water snuffs out fire, but a hot enough fire can ignore that. This is compact, extremely dense amounts of a type of chakra that predates the other chakra. It makes sense. It's stated here. And you see how in the other panels he's like circling stuff. You circle this right here, the entire point you're making goes out the window. And then here, it says, in other words, even if it hits your Edo Tensei body, now mind you, it's right to left with manga. I'm assuming the next thing he's about to say is you'll die. You'll get like, you know what I'm saying?
For chakra. If we equalize Haki as a spiritual energy, truth-seeking balls would logically nullify double fruit effects on contact.
Not true. Because again, truth seeking orbs aren't spiritual energy. They're chakra. You can argue chakra is spiritual energy, but I wouldn't even argue that. It's just an energy source. It's behind everything in the verse. It's not something that is atomic, but it's something in cells, we know at the very minimum. So it's behind everything. Everything has a chakra signature. That's why there's nature chakra in the air. Knowing that that's the case, as it's stated, everything with life has chakra. And even nature has chakra. That explains a lot. And knowing that, it's more of an energy source than anything. You want to claim it's a disintegration ray, but then also claim that it has existence erasure, but then also claim that it's a spiritual energy. If it's a spiritual energy, it could be existence erasure because it erases the spirit and the body, sure. But if it's a disintegration ray of chakra, which is defined to be, then it's an energy source that just disintegrates things that have the type of energy that can disintegrate. Hence them saying it turns all ninjutsu to dust.
And bypass base armament hockey. While Luffy could buy himself time by using advanced Conqueror's hockey to keep the ball from touching him, and who knows, maybe hockey can even interact with the truth-seeking balls considering how the natural energy of the Sage Mode could, but it's still a hard counter to his rubber defense. Finally, there's the biggest issue for Luffy, the stamina gap. Luffy's Gear 5 only lasts a few minutes. Once that timer hits 0, he can barely move until he eats food and recovers.
Not true. This scene exactly, I don't remember if he ate food or not, so I might be wrong. But from what I remember, this scene exactly in the manga, he doesn't eat anything at all. He just gets like this because he's tired, and then he immediately perks back up.
Meanwhile, Naruto fought in the 4th Great Ninja War for 2 days straight. He shared his chakra with the entire...
That's good feats. But again, if Luffy is now a Yonko, which are supposed to be relative to admirals, and we know he beat Kaido, who boxed with Big Mom for like 5 days, that scales his durability up. He beat... At this point, he's stronger than pre-time skip or relative to pre-time skip admirals by the fact that he's boxing Kizaru, in which Sakazuki and Aokiji boxed for 13 days straight, and that's what created Punk Hazard. Then, oh yeah, Naruto fought for 2 days straight. Luffy has the stamina to fight for 13 days straight. At the very least, half of that. But he boxed in admiral, so that makes him relative. Right? And if you want to say that's a 70% relativity, okay, it's not 13 days, it's like 10 days. If you want to say Kizaru was only using half his power, that 13 days becomes closer to 7 days. If you want to say he's only using a quarter of his power, that 7 days becomes closer to 3.5 days, which is still significantly longer than 2 days. So it's like, it's a lack of knowledge or a purposeful amount of cherry picking for particular points and leaving certain things out. And in doing that, if you haven't read any of these narratives, any of these stories, you don't know any information about the other side. So all you know is what he's presenting to you. And when data doesn't speak on its own. It can, but it often doesn't. We as people give it a voice. If both pieces of data are presented in their entirety as best as you can, bias kind of disappears for the most part. There's always going to be a slight amount of bias. But in doing what he's doing, he's giving you a max amount of information that is even being like hyperbolically used and ignoring certain statements. And then the other piece of information he's giving you, information is being left out and information is being lowballed by his own implications and not the data itself. So he's not giving you data, he's giving you his interpretations of data that may or may not exist. So from the beginning, you're dealing with like an argument that is set up with parameters that are like 50% truth. So how can you know, even if you go off the information he presented to you here, that you're correct, if the basis of your thing is off 50% truth? It's like if I get a number in an experiment and it's up to 50% accuracy, when you do all the error propagation at the end of that experiment, even if the data I found was like, oh, this joint right here, it's like 1% uncertainty, it's not. Even if this value is only 1% off from this value, the uncertainties of both those values is like half the size of that value. And if that's the case, this data is not believable. If it rains 50% of the time and it's sunny 50% of the time, you cannot tell me that it's 100% going to rain because it rained 2 days back to back. So out of the amount of days that have passed, there's a 100% chance of rain. That's not accurate because when you look at the data just on itself, it's a 50-50 chance actually. So the data that you've gathered has an uncertainty of 50-50. So when you carry out all the propagation, This is not an accurate statement.
Allied shinobi forces battled reincarnated top tiers, took on Obito, Madara, and Kaguya, and then went straight into a final fight with Sasuke that lasted
got me
another
yapping,
full
bro.
day.
It's gonna be like an hour-long
Naruto
video.
had a few breaks, and he wasn't in a transformed state the entire time, but there is still no comparison. You can lowball Naruto's attack potency and speed as much as you want, but you can't realistically
Unbiased individual saying there's no comparison, when there is quite literally a comparison.
put them lower than Luffy's. When you factor in that absolutely enormous stamina gap, which is impossible
You see what he's trying to say? Absolute enormous stamina gap. Mind you, Luffy's punching above his weight class. Naruto's fighting top tiers that are around his level while being boosted by the Sage Path chakra, which he no longer has right now. So again, no. Even the stamina gap he's using. Look at the two different images. He's not using two people at their peak and saying, yeah, this fought for like 18 days, this fought for 10 days. There's a crazy stamina gap. No, he's showing a use a form for 5 minutes against a top tier after losing multiple times already and like literally dying and coming back to life and saying, yeah, this is max stamina, 5 minutes, guys. And putting that against 2 days feat.
to deny.
Stop
Naruto
it,
takes a W in round 2 as well. For the third round, we're going to put the current Elbaf Gear 5 Luffy versus Hokage Naruto. But would this go any differently than the previous round? Let's find out. Luffy has better control over Gear 5, and he's more mindful of how he uses his Conqueror's Haki, but for the most part, has not shown anything beyond the Bajran gun in terms of attack potency.
Yes, he has. He's talking about destructive capacity. If he's improved his Haki, his AP automatically goes up. That's how the One Piece verse works. Haki already gives you Duraneg. So the higher type of Haki you have, the more damage your shit does. The more potent your Haki is, the more potent that negation is. The more damage you're able to do. Because Haki is also a type of energy. He hasn't had a destructive feat capable, comparable to the feat that he did against Kaido. But even that, the way he's using AP, is cooked.
On the other hand, Hokage Naruto is significantly stronger and faster than the version of Naruto.
He's also not. He lost his Sage Path, Sage Mode chakra. And with that chakra, he showed the feat of being able to dodge the light speed attack, which you admitted he aim dodged because it was not, he was using his sensory ability.
From the last movie, who tanked Toneri's Golden Wheel reincarnation explosion, an attack that literally split the
This is a good durability feat. It's also notable that this moon was hollow.
moon in half.
So the only energy of the attack that we know, mind you, because if it was a blunt force attack, there would be fractures everywhere. This is like a cutting attack. The energy specifically followed a line around a hollow planet and destroyed it. To quantify that difference from you, it's like if I took a metal ball made out of tungsten, punched it, and put a huge dent in that tungsten ball. My AP is way higher than someone who punched a hollow tungsten ball, and not only did it not crumple because it was supposed to be a blunt force attack, but it only lacerated around the sides, which then split open the tungsten ball. That requires way less force. Because again, force is equal to pressure over area. Because the area you use this attack on is still a moon, so it's still a high area. But unlike using the area of the entire moon to calculate the force, you only can use the area of this lateral slash around the moon. And because it's hollow, you can't even take into account the density of it because there is no real density besides the thin layer of crust before the stuff that's inside of it.
Just stop and think about that for a second. Can you imagine Luffy taking an attack that splits the moon? In fact, forget Luffy. Can you imagine Rocks, Joy Boy, Loki, or even Roger tanking such an attack? The answer is no, because it's ridiculous. The scale is simply so far beyond what One Piece characters are used to. And Naruto gets even more impressive here when you consider how he consistently clash.
Do you see that? Pete?
These characters are used to. And Naruto gets even more impressive here when you consider how he consistently clash
See his eyes? He can't do that no more.
evenly with Toneri's Tensei.
But even besides that, if you want to use feats like these, when it comes to scale, you then have to do all the scaling for One Piece, which is just, it's a hassle. It's not even something I want to get into.
Tenseigan chakra mode. Keep in mind that the Tenseigan was fully capable of destroying the Earth.
You can see that shit is a cutting attack.
Unlike the hyperbolic statements in One Piece that people use to
And now the niggas talking about hyperbolic statements. Chat, is It's
somehow
racist.
scale Whitebeard to planetary. Overall, there's absolutely nothing that gives
gonna let him
Luffy an
have
edge
it.
over Naruto in this round. He still has Gear 5 stamina issues.
Still has Durag. Canary used a cutting attack to split the moon. How do we know Naruto didn't die as that attack? And as a cutting attack, and the rest of the force was dispersed. To measure the total energy, you have to take the total area that it affected, what it did, and then you calculate that to Naruto. It didn't just hit Naruto. So then once you do all of that math, including the fact that it hit the entire area, he didn't, again, if this was a blunt force attack that hit him, and then he hit the moon, and then the moon cracked like that, then he tanked the full attack. In this case, he didn't. The attack hit the entire surface. That's what destroyed the moon, and he got hit by a small portion, a small derivative, a small fraction of the power of the attack. And mind you, even if you want to put his durability higher, Luffy has Durag that Naruto just simply doesn't have. Can't use True Secret Orbs anymore, so if you want to claim their existence erasure, doesn't have them. And then two, besides that, as we just stated before, as Luffy can become flat like paper, the force of the rubber that he is comprised of is significantly stronger than any Rasengan could be.
While Naruto can casually tank moon-splitting attacks, there's no way Luffy will be able to land a single decent blow before getting destroyed. So once again, Luffy takes the L. But what if Luffy didn't have those stamina issues? That is a very important question, and our final round is going to answer
think it is.
Yes, let's talk about in-game Luffy versus Baryon Mode Naruto. This is Luffy at his peak, and I mean peak in-game Luffy, with Haki at Joy Boy's level and a fully mastered Gear 5 against Baryon Mode.
Fuck Haki at Joy Boy's level. Emu with his Haki alone, with the stroke of a paintbrush, destroyed an entire island. One Piece is comprised of like 72 islands, and it's massively bigger than your Earth. If you want to do math on that, some of these islands can come up to the size of a continent. And then Emu just took the whole thing out with a fraction of his Haki.
Which is Naruto at his absolute peak. Now, you may be wondering,
To my
is that even
knowledge.
possible?
I thought it was a
Will
machine,
Luffy
but then I
eventually be
learned
able
it
to
was
use Gear
Haki.
5 without worrying about the stamina drain? The answer is 100% yes. Think about it. Joy Boy fought a great war against an alliance of 20 kingdoms. That's
And here this go pulling up, like, you see what I'm saying? He's pulling up data only when it benefits him. It's really throwing me.
simply wouldn't have been possible if he was running out of gas every few minutes like Luffy currently does. This implies that Joy Boy eventually mastered the fruit to the point where stamina was no longer a factor. And since Luffy's destined to accomplish what even Joy Boy failed to do, he's obviously going to achieve that same level of mastery. However, would even that be enough to take on Baryon Mode Naruto? Okay, I know some of you are going to call me out for this matchup because it feels unfair, but I had to do it this way. If we're talking about
It's unfair because Luffy doesn't need this to beat that nigga
in-game
Naruto,
Luffy,
bro.
we have to talk about the absolute peak of
Like,
Naruto.
holy.
Baryon Mode is a transformation that works like nuclear fusion. It consumes both Naruto's and Kurama's chakra as raw materials to produce a level of power so extreme it doesn't even make sense.
So it's different from the very root of it. The other mode involves taking chakra that you acquire from elsewhere and just using it, but
Just look at Ishiki.
doesn't put the other panel. Nuclear fission, the whole point is any other mode, Naruto is borrowing Kurama's chakra and mixing it with his own. Which Minato states the way the seal is designed, Naruto feeds off of Kurama's chakra, which increases passive reserves passively over time. And that is why Naruto has reserves now that are greater than Kurama's, which is why Kurama, didn't make it after nuclear fission because all of his chakra ran out. And he's a tail beast. He's designed to come back because their being is purely of chakra. But the point is nuclear fission is instead of pulling these two swords together with addition, the way I understand that statement is you're multiplying these forces together. And that's why his power is different. Even if you take something as simple as 3 plus 10. 3 plus 10 is 13. 3 times 10, you now have 30. And the bigger the number goes, someone with as much chakra as Naruto, let's say him and Kurama both have, let's say he has 101, Kurama has 100 in terms of chakra. Together, that's 200. That's like the highest base, like it's the highest chakra a regular human can have. Now it's 100 times 100, which gets you to what, chat? I know y'all good at math. 100 times 10 is what? 1,000. So 100 times 100 is what? 10,000. So knowing that, you took something that before was 200 and turned it to 10,000. That is an over 50 times multiplier, if I'm not mistaken. Because 200 times 5 is 1,000. And then there's 10,000s there. 5 times 10 is 50. That's an over 50 times multiplier of where its power was at before. To put it mathematically simply. So it doesn't do anything in terms of like, oh, it has the power of a nuclear reactor. It's just like how what we learned in Dragon Ball towards Super, where like Whis explains fusions are like multiplications of power instead of just additives.
He was treating both Naruto and Sasuke like victims. They were little more than fodder to him, and that makes sense.
Mind
While
you,
Ishiki
through hacks.
might be below Kaguya because he is an immortal, as a combatant, he is objectively superior. While Ishiki might be below Kaguya because he is an immortal,
She's not immortal at all. She's claiming to be, especially because in her domain, not only does she have hella chakra, and all chakra comes from her, it's very difficult to get this chakra to hurt her. So this statement is very hyperbolic. But two, as stated by Black Zetsu earlier, she's pulling the chakra from the thousands of people on the planet that all have chakra to fuel her pools. So she damn near at this point has like infinite chakra, right? That's where the I'm immortal hyperbolic statement comes into play. Ishiki is significantly stronger than her. Not even just as a combatant. Look at his abilities and the way he was able to spam attacks.
as a combatant, he is objectively superior. In fact, if Ishiki was the in-game opponent in Naruto instead of Kaguya, Naruto and Sasuke would have lost. He's also a nightmare to fight because his dojutsu, the Kokugan, allows him to instantly shrink objects or himself just by looking at them. It's so fast it looks like teleportation. He can store things in a timeless dimension, pull them out for surprise attacks, and summon giant black cubes that mess up your... He can store things in a
All it says, it allows me to store what I've shrunk, and it can turn it to a timeless dimension.
pull them out for surprise attacks, and summon giant black cubes that mess up your senses. In short, unless you are objectively superior to him in speed and power, you will get the fodder treatment. And yet, Naruto in Baryon mode was exactly that. He was objectively superior to Ishiki. Can you imagine how strong that must be? Let's look at the math. In the last
I was about to say, the nigga needs to put math up, because you can't just say, oh, objectively this is this, but have no, like, scale to
Naruto
it.
was already strong enough to tank an attack that sliced the entire moon
My nigga, you can see it.
in half.
Not tripping?
In the last, Naruto was already strong enough to tank an attack that sliced the entire
Shit ain't even hit, bro. This nigga Toneri's a fake demon. He literally just cut the moon in half to cut the moon in half.
moon in half.
Where
That's
does this
moon level
propaganda
durability
come
at
from?
a bare minimum.
No, it's not. Because it wasn't a blunt force attack that destroyed the moon. It was an attack that destroyed the surface of a moon that was hollow. It didn't split a moon in half, which would be similar to the force required to shatter a moon. It cut the surface of a hollow moon in half. So he's moon crust level in terms of durability. And we don't know how deep that crust is. So it's not something that you can use to scale unless you're like, you know what I'm saying, doing a bunch of like size comparison scales. And if you get to that point, you might even find this moon smaller than our moon, just by how big Naruto looks on that moon and how small he looks on Earth.
By the time he's the 7th Hokage, he's even stronger. And yet, when he and Sasuke fight Ishiki together, they get absolutely folded. But then Baryon mode enters the chat, and Naruto becomes definitely stronger than even this version of Ishiki. He starts snatching Ishiki's chakra rods out of the air before they even become visible. There's no other way to put it. Baryon mode Naruto is above anything we'll ever see in One Piece.
Bunch of blanket statements.
Ever. But wait, it might not be over for Luffy just yet, because in this case, it's Naruto who's on the timer. He has to finish Luffy off before Kurama's chakra runs out. So the next big question is, can Luffy avoid Naruto long enough for that timer to hit 0? I mean, nothing is impossible, but realistically, how? Again, Baryon no Naruto is multiple tiers above the Naruto that fought Toneri on the...
Mind you, no feats. No feats. No light speed feats so far. No several times faster than light speed so far. Just throws Moon in there without taking the context and nuances of that attack. Naruto didn't even get hit by the attack based off the animation we saw. Besides that, it was a hollow moon. And then to add on to that, you took the moon statement and just was like, oh, he's stronger than that. One Piece is never touching that. When pre-times get One Piece, if we want to use hyperbolic statements and ignore nuances, Whitebeard could destroy the world. Now, do I believe he could destroy the world, the One Piece world? Yes. Do I believe it's an instantaneous thing? No. I think his fruit could do that because it's tectonic plates, and with how big the One Piece world is, if you move those tectonic plates, you see what you saw. You have like hundreds and thousands of meters, like things bigger than the colossal titans and fucking AOT, looking tiny compared to the small fractions of tectonic plates Whitebeard was picking up. So it's like, you feel me? That statement is slightly hyperbolic. It's not wrong, but it would take him more time. So it's not just, oh, he's immediately planetary. That's not good math. That's Blaze. The same way here, taking a slash attack that Naruto didn't even tank all of, and just not doing any math and just saying, yep, I'm on level durability. It's the same concept.
Moon. One hit from Naruto is all it's going to take to destroy Luffy. Not to mention,
some people try to get him to solar. Like, they do the little dimension math. Not even limbo clones, but they do like dimension math by saying since Kaguya's dimension had like a star in it, and then it like surviving the gravity, this, that. They do that stuff to upscale things.
any contact Baryon mode,
Which, if you can do that logically, and I hear that, I would agree. But the way he's going about this, I don't know what bro's talking about. Almost everything he said has not only been debunkable, it's been like very falsifiable.
Naruto makes drains the opponent's lifespan as well. And in the very unlikely chance that Luffy does manage to hold out until Baryon mode disappears, Naruto will still have all his Jutsu and Rasengans and also Sage mode.
Yeah, but all of his chakras gone. He doesn't have what you just saw him using, which is Sage mode with Kurama.
Luffy loses this round 100% of the time. So yeah.
So, and then Pete, he just set it out to where Luffy loses all, what was it, like 4 rounds? Well, 3. No, 4. 4. It was 4, I think. Technically 3. It was Kid Naruto. Then he went to Naruto the End of Shippuden. Then he went to Baryon with Naruto. So it's technically 3 rounds. And he just had him lose the first one, which was complete cap. The second one, which was even more complete cap. And the third one, every statement used was not even quantifiable in terms of like being able to know stuff down to the T. So it's like, if you want to go off that, Luffy's winning 66 point, bunch of sixes % of the time. Because he won 2 out of the 3 rounds. You know what I'm saying?
As at the start, when I said once
And I have outros, bro. Any whoosies, man. Appreciate y'all boys for watching. I know those are longer reacts. You know what I'm saying? Comment down below. What do you think about that matchup? What do you think about the logic used? And yeah, without further ado, stay happy, healthy. I gotta get hydrated. And as always, time to see me next. Peace.